Look, let's have a look at one of the UN bodies now. The UN is becoming increasingly discredited, and in an alarming move, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been appointed the presidency of the United Nations Conference on Disarmament. This is a joke. Now, this is a rotating position, and it'll keep Iran in control over the international body. Michael, how can these bodies function with Iran heading the UN Agency for Disarmament? It's actually ludicrous and unthinkable.
Well, Sharri, this is not a lonely event. China has a seat on the UN Human Rights Council. There was a Chinese head of Interpol, the International Police Agency, until he was recalled to China and disappeared, like the previous Chinese foreign minister. So having Iran, a burglar when it comes to disarmament, chairing the UN conference is no more absurd than what's happening on human rights or Interpol. It just shows the world's lost its way when it comes to the UN. The UN is meant to be able to speak truth to autocrats and repressive regimes rather than pretend they're the opposite of what they are.
Yeah. Exactly right. Now, quickly, before we go, Israel is sending a delegation to the United States to discuss an alternative to a military offensive in the southern city of Rafah in Gaza. But at the same time, we've seen that Benjamin Netanyahu has declared he's not going to succumb to international pressure and take his foot off Hamas. What do you think we're seeing here? I mean, clearly Joe Biden is going down this path, at least in part, for political reasons. But do you think this delegation indicates that Israel might start to cave into some of his demands?
I don't think Israel can stop fighting the war against Hamas until it's dismantled the remaining Hamas organisation that is in Rafah. So I don't think that is going to happen. A lot of this is, as you say, about the domestic politics of the different countries rather than thinking about what's going to work in the Middle East. I think there's way too much of this performance from Western leaders, and we forget what war looks like. Israel's in the middle of a war, and there's a humanitarian crisis as a result. But Netanyahu is a bit like Margaret Thatcher, isn't he? The lady's not for turning.
Well, you know, he is a very controversial figure, but at this point, I mean, who doesn't support the destruction of Hamas and the return of the hostages? No one sensible, that's for sure. Michael Shoebridge, thank you very much for your time tonight.